You probably don't know what that is, and I wouldn't blame you either, since it's a name that I came up with. We came across them one night while hiking in the woods behind my house. I have lived here for years, but always avoided the woods until recently. It was close to nightfall, and Charlie and I got drunk one night. We were just chilling in the living room when he had this crazy idea to go out into the woods and just see what we could find. He encouraged me to take my hunting rifle, just in case. Go hunting while drunk? This has to be your dumbest idea yet, Charlie. And so it still mystifies me why I went through with it. Probably because of the beer. Anyway, we grabbed my hunting rifle from the garage and headed out back. I have a pretty huge backyard, and it took us a couple of minutes before we were past the thick crescent of trees. Shit, I've never been in these woods before. Maybe I am stupid, Charlie said, rubbing the back of his neck and looking around. Hey, maybe I should take that thing. Charlie gestured towards the rifle. I pulled it away. Nuh-uh, I said. You don't even know how to use this thing. Charlie slumped and looked around again, truly spooked by our surroundings. But that was Charlie in a nutshell. Coming up with stupid ideas but not having the courage to follow through with them. I just shook my head and began to walk into the darkness, using the flashlight in my other hand to guide us forward. Soon enough, I got tired of both my hands being occupied, and so I tossed the flashlight to Charlie and told him to keep the beam steady. He didn't do a very good job, and he managed to drop the flashlight several times. We didn't see much at first, just skittish squirrels and raccoons. The eyes of the latter absorbing the beam and making him drop the flashlight again. After he picked it up, the beam accidentally fell upon something. What the hell? Charlie said. Dave, I can see, I replied, voice cutting off. The scary thing was that we saw a pair of glowing eyes emerge from the darkness, but they didn't belong to a raccoon. A big black dog came crawling out of the small cave. It was injured pretty badly, or it seemed like it in the semi-darkness. We didn't know what to do in the moment. Charlie was freaking out. As I stepped closer to the dog, it seemed to almost slither back into the cave. And being so confused in the moment, the only thing I could think of doing was to go in after it. I kept crawling further into the blackness, with Charlie's voice sounding further and further away, further than it should have been. Dave, where the hell did you go? I could hear Charlie again, but this time his voice was impossibly thin. My ears pricked and my brain registered the words, and so I assumed I wasn't having an auditory hallucination. The dog's eyes were pulling me in further, until I fell onto the slanted cave floor. I slid, spiraling along the ground and not stopping until I collided with the cavern wall. Once my head stopped spinning, I realized that I was in a well-lit room, but lit with lazily floating fireflies. I tried to reach out and grab one of them, but it buzzed away, and then halted a few feet away from me. Strange, I said, the word sounding weird and insubstantial. I called Charlie's name a few times, but nothing. I walked forward cautiously, glancing around for any sign of that bloody hound. I was nervous to find it for some reason. It didn't hit me at first, but the hound had scared me, like my own life was at stake. I couldn't put my finger on it. I continued to yell Charlie's name, absent-mindedly swatting the fireflies. Another weird thing was that some of the fireflies buzzed away from me, while others had to be swatted. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but as I rounded a corner and came to a room with a bunch of mounds with vague-looking faces on them, I saw Charlie kneeling with a mask over one of the mounds. "Charlie," I said, running to him. The bloody hound lunged at me from somewhere in the darkness, and all of a sudden, I found myself on the couch with Charlie drinking beer. He gave me that bewildered, on steroids, what the hell kind of look, so I could tell that what we had experienced was 100% real. No, surreal was more like it. I had to calm Charlie down. He was hysterical, talking about seeing some man in a mask kneeling by one of the burial mounds. I told him that I had seen the same damn thing, except I remembered observing that the lower half of his face wasn't covered, and thinking that it looked very much like Charlie. He said that I must have been mistaken. We sat there for a long time, processing what had happened, drinking one beer each to reduce some of the anxiety. I mean, it was a dark cavern, except for those damn fireflies, right? Easy to mistake the man in the mask with me. Charlie wanted another beer and I shook my head. I actually regret having that last one. Beer got us into this mess, and it sure as hell won't get us out of it, I said darkly. We batted around some ideas, other plausible scenarios that could explain the resemblance, or an inaccurate perception on my part. Nothing seemed to fit. We came to the conclusion we weren't going to solve what happened immediately, and so we decided to crash on my couch. He joked that we could figure it out over a beer at breakfast, and I just shook my head as I walked up the stairs to bed. Before my foot touched the first stair, Charlie asked, "So, was it just me, or were those fireflies whispering?" I don't know, man. Everything happened so fast. Anyway, it's getting late. There's snacks in the fridge if you want them. And then I went up the stairs and I flipped on my bedroom light. I felt bad for sort of terminating the conversation, but honestly, I still didn't really process all that had happened. I needed introvert time, also sleep. And after all of that, it might be possible to put the pieces together. That night, I slept fitfully, almost violently. I remember thrashing in my sheets, like I could barely breathe. I dreamed of that cave, the fireflies that just hung there, and those burial mounds with the vague faces. My intuitive brain began to try and put the pieces together. Maybe the whispering Charlie heard came from the burial mounds. It seemed to make more sense than fireflies whispering for some odd reason. I saw the masked man in my dreams, kneeling by one of the burial mounds. It didn't seem to be motivated by sadness so much as an adherence to ritual. The nightmare hound prowled the room, bloodied and growling. Despite that, I felt it had tried to save me the last time I was in the cavern, and even now, I got the sense that it wanted to communicate something vital to me. It lunged at me and I woke up terrified, sweat pouring down my face. I looked at my alarm clock. 6:30 a.m. I shuffled down the stairs and Charlie was already sitting at the kitchen table, beer in hand. Charlie, I thought we agreed to, but his skin was pale, dark circles under both eyes. Charlie must have been having the nightmares too. I poured myself a bowl of cereal, Good old Apple Jacks. Charlie waved his hand at the cereal box, indicating that he wasn't really hungry. Charlie and I were wired differently. The nightmares had really gotten to me too, but I had such a fast metabolism that I needed to eat something. Anything, really. Charlie had the kind of metabolism where he could go days without eating. As I started stuffing my face with Apple Jacks, he began to mumble about the nightmares. He talked about the Hound as black as the night sky, the masked man, the burial mounds, and of course, the fireflies. Maybe it was all just one horrible dream, you know? Maybe we were just drunk as hell. I didn't want to accept that answer. The Nightmare Hound wanted to help me. I could practically feel it. I wouldn't tell Charlie my reservations though. I would wait to see what transpired. Over the next few days, I kept having the nightmares. Waking up in sweats, watching in a kind of horrid sleep paralysis as the Nightmare Hound watched me. It would come up to me and press its wet nose against my forehead and growl. Adrenaline shot through me as I thought that it was going to bite my head off. I tried to find the cave in the woods myself, but no matter how long I searched, it remained elusive. That damn bloodied hound followed me into the woods, striking fear into me every time I saw it approach from a cluster of trees. It would bark, froth dripping down its mouth. I thought that it might have rabies, but it didn't attack, it just growled. Those eyes weren't natural, the glow in them too deep and fierce to belong to any earthly animal. I did my best to placate the thing, bringing treats with me. I would toss them as far as I could. The hound would chase after them, never gone for long though. I didn't even bother telling Charlie about my encounters with the hound in the woods. He just wanted to forget that whole night. If Charlie also had the nightmares, he didn't mention them. I decided not to either until one night I woke up from another cave dream. Woken up by the Nightmare Hound as it lunged at me from my subconscious mind and into reality. The masked man stood next to my closet, large hand on the furry head of the Nightmare Hound, who growled and fixed its glowing white eyes on me.
You will not find the cave when you are a sober mind, given to the chaos of the subconscious.
Are you Charlie? Are you the man who was in the cave the first time? I asked, able to move my mouth but nothing else. The masked man chuckled.
No, I am different,
was all the masked man said, and I could tell by the weird glint in his eye that he told the truth. He had a trickster vibe to him, immediately obvious, but something lurked just beneath that I couldn't put my finger on. I wondered if he would kill me then, since I couldn't move, held there by some unseen force. But when the grogginess went away entirely, I could finally move again. The Nightmare Hound remained, growling and staring at me with hateful glowing eyes. As I sat up, it got closer. I reached out and I placed a tentative hand on its head. The growling stopped. A nasty trail of dried blood went from the hound's lower jaw past its chest, which had a white, lot-shaped patch in the middle. It led me downstairs, whimpering every time I lingered. It stopped at the fridge, sitting and whimpering expectantly. I opened it and the hound clumsily touched one of the beer cans with its paws. Luckily, it didn't puncture anything. "You want a beer?" I asked the hound jokingly. It growled with glowing eyes again, stepping towards me. Okay, you don't like to drink, got it. I took out one of the cans and then it clicked. The masked man said that I would not find the cave in a sober mind, so I just needed to take a drink. I took out several beers and I proceeded to get plastered. "I'm going to call you Rex," I said to the Hound, my humor coming out. Feeling altruistic, I went back to the fridge and I tossed Rex some leftovers, and then I shambled back to the table with another beer.
Why are you lingering?
The masked man asked me, sounding irritable. "Am I really in a hurry to go to the cave?" I replied. "What's in there but a bunch of fireflies and whispering burial mounds? Death and flies." I wasn't sure if it was the beer or something else filtering into my mind. I felt off, mildly pleasant, and then terror would shoot through me for a brief second. My mental offness asserted itself. I was going to the cave. I made my way to the thick crescent of trees, and then stumbled across the divide. Rex trotted ahead of me, presumably so I wouldn't become disoriented or disinterested in the task. I found the cave pretty quickly, and then I got on my knees and I crawled through the small opening. Since I was drunk, it felt like swimming instead of crawling. I eventually emerged in the same chamber populated with burial mounds and lit by fireflies. It was at that moment that I wondered about the purpose of the fireflies. Stepping closer to the burial mounds, I saw the masked man again. Not the trickster one, not the one who would impale me with a sword and laugh about it later. The other masked man. I noticed this time that the mask was slightly darker.
I have to thank you and Charlie for encountering this cave. His dark mind, those nightmares brought me to life.
The masked man said. "And my nightmares?" And then the other masked man stepped in, the one I felt a closer kinship to. The deadly gesture, my mind thought at once. My nightmares had created this thing. "How can I get the nightmares to stop?" I asked. The feeling of drunkenness persisted. Indeed, it seemed to heighten, as the threat of terror made its way through me.
Step closer to the mounds. What do you see?
It was the masked jester who spoke. He smiled, but it was frozen in place like it was artificial. I stepped closer to the mounds and I saw faces. Faces trapped in horror. And then I could hear whispering beside me. Right beside me. I jumped and realized that a firefly buzzed next to me. So the whispers had come from the fireflies, not the mounds. I made out only fragmented words of the whispering. Death, terror. Your hands carried the dead. The masked jester explained to me what had happened. All quite humorous to him, but I didn't find it amusing at all. Charlie's masked man, the one his nightmares had created, had killed several people, just like other masked men who came into existence because some fool wandered into a cave. The burial mounds held their bodies, and their souls wandered into fireflies. I noticed one of the burial mounds had Charlie's face on it. Oh shit, what does that mean? One of you is going to kill me now. Am I going to end up in one of those burial mounds? My voice rose to a panic, and I backed away as the masked men got closer. The masked jester brought the sword to my chest, demented, smile widening. I closed my eyes and I begged them not to kill me, pleaded. My eyes were closed for the longest time, and I dared not open them for fear of what might happen. Like many, Charlie wanted to ignore the darkness,
so he paid the price. But you wanted to embrace it. I don't think we can kill you as much as we want to. Something is telling us not to.
The masked jester said. I saw Rex behind them, sitting obediently, watching intently with hawk-like eyes. He growled, and almost as if in response, the masked jester and the other masked men put away their swords and stood immobile. And then Rex led me out of the cavern, from a tunnel that I didn't know existed, and I shambled home like a corpse because I was still drunk as hell. So many times on the laborious walk home, I thought Rex would viciously rip into my flesh because of that hateful look in its eyes. It slithered through the still open back door like a shadow, leading me up the stairs and to my bed. I sat on the edge of my bed, tired, feeling like I had just aged a million years. Rex looked at me, cocking his head. The hateful stare made an unexpected movement from that thing mildly terrifying, and it still had that nasty wound running from its lower jaw past its abdomen. I'm not sure why I saved your life back there, Dave. You just let me die. You carried my corpse to the burial mound. I could rip out your jugular in your sleep and we would be even. I heard Charlie's voice in my head, but for some reason, I can't do that. Charlie? I asked. Is that really you? It whimpered before answering in my mind. I prefer Rex, it said.